All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're exploring a massive shift that's happening all around us. We're taking everyday physical objects. We're talking everything from refrigerators to life-saving medical devices, and we're just plugging them straight into the global network. It's this wild new era we call the Internet of Everything. But as you might guess, this incredible connectivity has created some totally unprecedented physical risks. So in this explainer, we're going to look closely at how the tech world is fighting back to actually secure our physical reality.
So how secure is your smart light bulb? We're starting with this innocent-looking question because it perfectly exposes the real vulnerability of our modern world. You might buy a smart bulb just for the convenience of it, but what you're actually doing is plugging your home directly into a massive, unsecured digital ecosystem.
Section 1. The Internet's Evolution.
Okay, so to understand the mess we're in right now, we have to look at our foundational problem. Early internet developers weren't building a network for billions of hostile actors. Actually, it was more like a digital clubhouse for a relatively small, trusted community of tech experts. In that kind of environment, speed, efficiency, and interoperability simply won out over built-in security. And that culture of, hey, let's just get it to market fast, carried forward for literally decades.
Fast forward to today, and we are connecting absolutely everything to this foundational network. Now, organizations used to struggle with Bring Your Own Device, or BYOD policies, back when employees first started bringing smartphones to work. But experts are actually calling the Internet of Things BYOD on steroids, because we aren't just bringing phones to the office anymore, right? We're bringing network-connected cameras, smart thermostats, and sensors into every single aspect of our lives, which massively expands our attack surface.
Section 2. The attack surface expands. This expansion fundamentally alters the stakes, shifting cybersecurity from a purely digital problem to a very physical one. For years, traditional hacking mostly threatened the confidentiality of our data. Stealing credit card numbers, reading private emails, that sort of thing. But IoT hacking, that threatens integrity and availability. Hackers aren't just looking at your data anymore. They can physically lock you out of your house, manipulate physical machines, or even prevent you from turning on your own car.
Which brings us right back to our light bulb. To prove this physical vulnerability, back in 2016, researchers literally flew a drone outside an office building to remotely take over a Philips Hue smart bulb and install malicious, irreversible firmware on it. Other researchers found that Liftex brand bulbs were actually keeping Wi-Fi passwords in plain, easily readable memory. So suddenly, a convenient little light bulb becomes an open window right into your private network.
But let's be honest, if a smart bulb is compromised, it's mostly just a nuisance. As these real-world examples show, the consequences escalate terrifyingly fast. A Wired reporter, acting basically as a digital crash test dummy, had his Jeep Cherokee's transmission and wipers taken over remotely while he was driving down a highway. No way, right? And we've seen confirmed vulnerabilities in Johnson & Johnson insulin pumps and St. Jude medical pacemakers. The takeaway here is stark. When cars and medical devices are hacked, the consequences aren't just financial. People can actually die.
Section 3. Hacking the physical world.
The stakes escalate even further when we zoom out from individual consumers to entire cities. Take Washington, D.C., for example. Back in 2013, the city deployed over 1,300 wireless traffic sensors to help manage congestion. But researchers quickly discovered they could easily intercept unencrypted data from these sensors. From 2 miles away, or even from a drone flying 650 feet up in the air, they could fake data and manipulate citywide traffic systems totally at will.
And it's not just traffic. Hackers are actively targeting SCADA systems. These are the massive industrial controls that run our power grids and our water supplies. Malicious actors have already tested these capabilities by hacking into a New York dam and taking remote control of Ukrainian electricity distribution, leaving hundreds of thousands of people completely in the dark. They are actively placing the tools needed to turn off the lights for an entire city.
Section 4. The Mirai botnet.
This brings us to a massive culmination of this problem. What happens when millions of these poorly secured individual devices are banded together? Well, we need to define a term here, a botnet. Because IoT devices are designed to just function indefinitely in the background, consumers rarely realize their smart cameras or routers are actually infected. The device just keeps working normally for you, but behind the scenes, it's taking orders from a hacker as part of a massive, synchronized army.
And you might be wondering, how hard is it to build this army? Well, the infamous Mirai botnet took over tens of thousands of devices simply by scanning the internet using a list of just 68 default username and password pairs. Think about that for a second. Just 68 default passwords that users or manufacturers never even bothered to change, allowed hackers to completely hijack a global network of hardware.
Mirai then used this army of cameras and DVRs to launch a massive distributed denial of service, or DDoS, attack against DIN, which is a major internet infrastructure provider. You can think of a DDoS as a massive, intentional digital traffic jam. This incredible wave of malicious traffic, compounded by frustrated users hitting refresh over and over again, effectively took down major sites like Twitter and Netflix across the entire US East Coast. Cheap, insecure home devices literally broke the internet.
Section 5. Securing the future. Okay, take a breath, because it's not all doom and gloom for sure. A very robust defense network is actively stepping up, and a major part of the solution comes from massive scale. The dominant cloud giants are fighting back by standardizing security. Amazon Web Services provides continuous monitoring to spot abnormal device behavior. Microsoft introduced Azure Sphere, which brilliantly builds security directly into the microcontroller layer with a custom Linux operating system. And Google and Alibaba are strictly enforcing built-in authentication and encrypted communications. They're finally addressing security at the foundation, so it doesn't have to be awkwardly bolted on later by the manufacturers.
We also heavily rely on the experts out there. Independent, white-hat security researchers play an absolutely critical role in our safety. They participate in what's known as coordinated vulnerability disclosure programs. These are the folks finding the flaws in everything from smart sniper rifles to those Philips light bulbs, reporting them directly to the companies, and getting them patched before the bad guys can exploit them.
But man, we still have a really long way to go. Astonishingly, 93% of the world's top companies on the Forbes Global 2000 list still lack a vulnerability disclosure policy. That means if a helpful researcher finds a fatal flaw in a connected medical device or a factory sensor, it's incredibly difficult for them to even figure out who to report it to so it can be fixed.
To kind of wrap things up here, security expert Bruce Schneier brilliantly summarizes our current reality. He points out that it used to be that things had computers in them, but now they're really just computers with things attached to them. Because of this, our physical world is rapidly inheriting all the deeply ingrained vulnerabilities of the digital world.
Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought to chew on. We are reaching a point of total integration. Will saying I'm going on the internet soon make about as much sense as plugging in a toaster and saying I'm going on the power grid? Consider how our entire reality shifts when every single object around us is silently and constantly connected. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a brand new lens through which to view the connected world all around you.